Coming up on The Disturbance, my Minnesota Timberwolves do the unthinkable and decide to avoid scoring and make a huge trade. It was something like 8-for-1 to bring in Rudy Gobert to play a little bit of defense in a league where defense isn't really played until the playoffs. I will give you my opinions on whether or not I think this was a good deal for the Minnesota Timberwolves in the short term and long term. Plus, we'll also get into some of the other National Basketball Association free agency moves, which includes Gary Payton II to the Portland Trailblazers and Otto Porter III to the Toronto Raptors. Plus, we'll cover a little bit, just a little bit, of the madness between Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant. I've got all of that, and trust me, a whole lot more coming up on the big show today.
Live and on tape from the heart of Silicon Valley, this is The Disturbance, hosted by Dave Daba. Now to the host, who can't stop ripping on players, coaches, and unbelievably bad front office management, Dave Daba.
It's super late on Friday, July 1st of the year 2022. I'm Dave Daba, and thanks so much for joining us on The Disturbance today. Now, if you're watching this on YouTube and you're new to the show, please go ahead and subscribe to the show. And if you like what you hear or dislike what you hear, hit one of those like buttons. If you're listening to us on any of the various podcast networks, we appreciate it, and please share the show out. That being said, big show for you. As I mentioned, we'll get into the NBA free agency in just a little bit, but we are going to start with the Minnesota Timberwolves. Now, for those of you that are watching this on YouTube, at this very moment, you are probably looking up saying, Dave Daba is a true Minnesota Timberwolf fan. He's actually got a Timberwolf hat on, and believe it or not, one of just a few of the Minnesota Timberwolf hoodies that exist in the state of California. I happen to own 2 out of the 4 that exist in the state of California. And let's just say none of them are highlighter green Seattle Seahawks, if you know what I mean. Now, the Minnesota Timberwolves have a new general manager that took over the team just a little while ago. A gentleman's name is Tim Conley. Now, Tim has had a lot of success throughout his career in similar roles, most notably with the Denver Nuggets. He's the guy responsible for hunting down and finding Jokovic in the second round. Jokovic, who just received the largest contract in the history of the National Basketball Association, north of $260 million, did Jokovic walk away with in that deal. So you've got this new general manager with the Minnesota Timberwolves. You have a new ownership group, which is slowly but surely taking over this Minnesota Timberwolf team. I leave it to the Timberwolves to do a deal with a new ownership group that is slowly becoming the majority owner of the team. It's just taking time as they're working on installment payments. Now, for those of you that don't know, the Minnesota Timberwolves were purchased by Mark Lowry. Alex Rodriguez is part of the ownership group as well. More on A-Rod another day, if you know what I mean. Mark Lowry is most famous for co-founding Jet.com. A very successful entrepreneur, and certainly has a lot of money and enough money to afford the purchase of this Minnesota Timberwolf team and the deals that come along with it. Enter Danny Ainge, who is now basically running the Utah Jazz. Danny Ainge, who is famous for collecting draft picks, is up to it again as he pulls off a monumental deal. He gets 4 first-round draft picks from the Minnesota Timberwolves between now and 2029. Plus, he gets the Minnesota Timberwolves first-round draft pick this year, Will Kessler. So if you look at it, he basically got 5 first-round draft picks for Rudy Gobert to go to Minnesota. Then, on top of it, if that wasn't enough, he got Patrick Beverley. He also went out and said, give me Malik Beasley And then he took the underrated Jared Vanderbilt as well as part of this particular deal. Jared is a young player that you could put into the starting lineup. He can get you 10 points a game. He can get you 7 or 8 boards a game. Highly energetic. The Utah fans will be excited to get him. I would not be surprised to see a Patrick Beverley never play for the Utah Jazz, though Patrick Beverley is fiery like Danny Ainge, but I'm having a hard time seeing Patrick Beverley. I wouldn't be surprised to see a contract buyout, and then maybe Patrick Beverley will find his way back to the Minnesota Timberwolves. As for the analysis of this particular deal, you have to be shocked. And I don't think you can say awed necessarily yet. I think this is one of those deals where on paper, your initial response is this was an absolutely horrific deal. But if you think about it from where the Minnesota Timberwolves have been over the past 20 years, just being in the playoffs twice, doing something like this when they have a team that actually made a bit of a run in the playoffs this year, which was for them making the playoffs, you have to sort of say, they had to do something else to shake it up, because when the season ended, I said to numerous people that there was probably no way this team was going to go any further as it was currently constructed. Now, when they went out and picked up Will Kessler in the draft, I immediately thought something's up here. He's a big man. He's a center. He's not going to get you a lot of points. He's going to play sort of the enforcer role. Expect Rudy Gobert to do that. You have to remember Rudy Gobert is a potential someday Hall of Famer in the National Basketball Association, probably underrated, probably one of the top 20 defensive players of all time to ever lace it up in the National Basketball Association. Those are the positives when it comes to Rudy Gobert. He can average 15 points for you a night and close to 14 rebounds, which is what he did last year. Who's going to walk away from a player that can give you 14 rebounds, 14 rebounds a night in a league where it seems as if 3/4 of the National Basketball Association has gone small? Having a guy like Rudy Gobert collect offensive boards and defensive boards as those small little point guards nip at his toes is definitely something that the Minnesota Timberwolves were thinking. They were clearly thinking we are going to head in a different direction than the rest of the National Basketball Association. Clearly, the big cat who just has signed his massive extension to remain with the Minnesota Timberwolves is not a true center. He's a wingman in a center's body with a point guard's shooting ability from 3. That is who Big Cat is, and it's nice for the Timberwolves to recognize that. As much as we like to see the Big Cat down in the post, he is really good at also spreading the ball around and spreading the offensive around, which is one of the things that they'll be able to do more and more with as they introduce the modern day version of what I guess maybe a Twin Towers would look like. That being said, you also have the young superstar in the making, Anthony Edwards, who's been in a couple movies already. He's already checked off the bucket list. A show up in an Adam Sandler movie. But he had a significant role in an Adam Sandler movie, so you got to give it to him. So Anthony Edwards is a different kind of player. He's a slasher. He's developing more and more from the 3-point line and beyond. So certainly getting a little bit better there. We saw huge improvements. You also sort of got the feeling that any given night, if he wanted to, he could score 25 points in a game. And I think these moves actually free that up for that to actually happen. Now, there's still other questions on this Timberwolves roster that haven't been answered yet. D'Angelo Russell being one of them, and some other key pieces of the ingredients is that this T-Wolves team is going to need in order to at least make a deeper playoff run. Now, what do you consider a successful season? As I sit here wearing my Minnesota Timberwolve hat on July 1st and my Minnesota Timberwolve hoodie, do you consider it winning one round in a NBA playoffs? So you're in the second round of the NBA playoffs. Would you, as a Timberwolf fan, would you, as a fan of the National Basketball Association, think that in the highly competitive Western Conference, a Minnesota Timberwolf team that was one of 4 teams left in the West, would that be a successful season for the Minnesota Timberwolves? Look, the style of basketball that the T-Wolves will play into the regular season might not translate as well to the playoffs as you think. So I wouldn't be surprised for the Timberwolves to be hovering around 4 or 5 when the season ends in terms of their playoff position. But God forbid any one of these 3 is out for any extended period of time. Because if that happens, they are going to be hurting in a big way. Final note, a lot of people are going to look at this, including myself, saying, I hate the fact that they gave up as many draft picks as they had to give up. I mean, like, what did they do? Did they put this particular deal together and say, okay, we're going to give 5, we're basically going to give around 5 first-round draft picks, and did Tim Connelly call Brooklyn first? Did Tim Connelly actually attempt to do this deal with the Brooklyn Nets? Look, Brooklyn Nets, we'll give you 5 first-round draft picks for Kevin Durant. We'll give you Patrick Beverley. We'll give you Malik Beasley, and we'll give you Jared Vanderbilt. Was that not enough for the Brooklyn Nets? I mean, if this is what Rudy Gobert is going to get to go to the Minnesota Timberwolves, who, let's face it, probably overpaid by a player or 2 first-round draft picks, and all of that will be forgiven. And the reason it will be forgiven is as long as the Minnesota Timberwolves actually win a playoff series in the upcoming season. Remember, the expectations for this T-Wolves team, as much as everybody wants to win an NBA title, the expectations are simply to build and actually figure out how to win at least one playoff series in the upcoming season. It's not just to play their way into the playoffs, but it's actually to be one of the 4 last teams standing. That, my friends, would be a successful season for the Minnesota Timberwolves. Now, quickly, around the rest of the National Basketball Association we go. All sorts of news all over the place. I'm not planning on covering all of it because a lot of it is being covered every place else, other than to say Gary Payton II going to the Portland Trail Blazers to join his friend Dame Lillard for $28 million in a 3-year deal felt a little cheap. It felt like Gary could have gotten significantly more money. I know that the Golden State Warriors were cash strapped. They're all in all sorts of luxury tax jail at this point. And so the decision that they had to make to not match or not exceed what Gary Payton was going to get on the open market was one thing. I just think he left some other monies on the table. That being said, congrats to a guy that wasn't even in the NBA basically at the start of last season, a guy that was actually willing to become a video coach for the Golden State Warriors. To turn things around as much as he did is a monumental example of what hard work and being put in the right position by the right team and the right ownership and the right general manager and the right coach can do. Sometimes it's not about the talent. Sometimes it's about the situation that ultimately brings out the success in you. And that's what Gary Payton actually pulled off. Now, Otto Porter Jr. is headed to the Toronto Raptors. At the time in which we recorded this podcast, I didn't have the specifics on the deal, though I'm assuming it's a similar size deal to what Gary Payton Jr. got. Lastly, this whole Kyrie, Irving, KD thing that is going on in Brooklyn. Now, he did a show earlier in the week on Kyrie, and I really don't want to talk about Mr. The Earth is Flat anymore, but he did put out a tweet earlier today that was at least worth noting. And the tweet was like a bird in a cage being freed from the cage. It was a GIF. And so you see this black bird flying away out of this black cage, and that's what you see. So I guess that's Kyrie's way of saying I'm leaving Brooklyn, either through a buyout or most likely a trade at some point. As for KD demanding a trade and requesting a trade like hours before his new 4-year contract went into place, all sorts of things to talk about there. I'm only going to cover just a couple of those things super quick, and that is to say, like, why would you ever, if you're Kevin Durant, feel the need to sign a 4-year deal without an out in a contract? You are Kevin Durant. Where was your agent before you signed this deal? Where were your lawyers to say and remind you that you are the best basketball player in the world? Sure, you can sign a 4-year deal, but we'll put an out clause in it, a player option to exit every year of that contract, if that's what you want. Like, there were ways around this so that KD, if he understood things weren't going to head in the right direction, which he should have known when he signed this contract to begin with. There's, first of all, no reason for him to sign the contract at the time that he did it. Where were KD's people when he signed this contract? It has put him in a bad position. Now, us as fans of the National Basketball Association, us as observers, some people in the media, I can tell you that we all feel bad for what happened to Kevin Durant in Brooklyn. You can't not but feel bad for the guy. So you want to see KD end up in a situation where he can be, semi-successful. So you understand that in this particular case, you're willing to actually give somebody a hall pass. Not a hard pass. This is an actual hall pass for KD. I'm going to give you a Brooklyn Nets hall pass. The thing is, regardless of where you end up next, you need to stay. That's what I want to say to KD. Now, this request to join the Phoenix Suns is going to be a very complicated thing to get done, and most likely will require 3 or 4 teams to make that happen. Things are also extremely complicated on the Miami Heat front if they want to try to get a deal done there in terms of what the Nets would get back. If you're the Brooklyn Nets, you have to ask yourself, what is it that you're really, really trying to get out of this? Are you trying to get draft picks? Are you trying to get players that can win today? Because you got a decent nucleus in place. So what exactly are you trying to get when you move KD and then ultimately you're going to move Kyrie after that? Probably not end up doing those deals in a package, but probably end up doing those 2 deals separately. Now, I don't know anybody outside of LeBron that thinks it's a good idea to bring in the headache that is Kyrie. It's almost as if LeBron has Kyrie kryptonite and doesn't see what the rest of the world is seeing when it comes to Kyrie at this point. Fantastic talent, no argument there. It's just, will he show up is the question. As for KD, one last place where I think, I thought that I didn't think he was ever going to go to the Timberwolves. Let me just be clear about that. But I thought the T-Wolves had enough draft picks and the T-Wolves had enough talent to figure out how to get a player of KD's caliber there. Once again, I think we gave up too much to get Gobert. But still, proof will be in the pudding. We'll have to give this one a little bit of time to see how it all plays out. You can't just claim victory. You can't be like Sports Illustrated, who releases their grade of the trade literally an hour after it comes out and gives the Utah Jazz an A and gives the Minnesota Timberwolves a C. Is the same reporter that put that out on Sports Illustrated going to go back a year from now and revisit the grading of that trade? I'm just asking. I really want to know, is that going to happen? As for KD, the other team that I think makes the most sense, it's just a question of, will KD be happy there? And I think, I haven't said yet where this is, but I think if KD actually embraced this city in a way that, and now I'm about to give it away, in a way that Drew Brees embraced this city, they would sell out every freaking game. He would become a legend, if you will, in New Orleans, if he found himself in New Orleans. If you look hard at that New Orleans roster, we know Ingram is going to get you 20 points a night, maybe 10 boards a night, some nights more than 20 points a night. That is an extraordinarily valuable asset for the Nets. There are several other young players on that team as well that could easily be traded while not gutting the entire team to bring KD in, pair him with CJ McCollum, and possibly some version for a couple games with some guy named Zion Williamson if Zion's not part of the deal. New Orleans has more than enough draft picks to make this Minnesota Timberwolves attractive for the Brooklyn Nets. So if you're the Brooklyn Nets and you want to do something that's sort of easy and that you can actually really benefit from and actually keep your team in the playoff picture for the upcoming season and the seasons to come, the New Orleans Pelicans are the perfect place to go do it. So I don't understand why that is not a consideration. And the only thing I can sort of come up with is KD and his camp don't want to go to New Orleans. I understand the lure of Phoenix and I understand the lure of Miami, but if you're the Brooklyn Nets, the deal you need to make is the best deal that you can make for yourself, not for the exiting player, even if it is a Kevin Durant. And that was really a conversation, if you will, about how much power KD actually really has in this particular scenario. Does he have as much leverage as he thinks he has? Do the Brooklyn Nets realize how much leverage they actually have in getting what's best for their organization? That's the real question here. And I think the Nets have more leverage than they realize, at least on paper. All right, North America, I want to thank everybody so much for tuning into The Disturbance. Thanks so much for watching us on YouTube as well. Do check out our big sports website at disturbance.live. We're basically 2 podcasts, sometimes 3 a week. Do subscribe and check us out when you have a chance. We're just a couple months away from the Gods of Odds sports prediction show kicking back off as well. As always, for The Disturbance, I'm Dave DeVaugh in full Minnesota Timberwolves gear today, wishing you all a tremendous rest of your sports viewing week.
The Disturbance is a production of the Mighty Rip Podcast Network. For more witty, 100% independent sports coverage, check out our big website at mighty.rip. Okay, go ahead and kill the music now.